Okay, guys, here is our session delivery for today. We have sessions 3 and 4 that I'm combining together. Both of them deal with archetypes, with character archetypes, and 4 really just talked more about how archetypes can sometimes be complex. Like, it's not a one-size-fits-all, like you can only be one of the archetypes and that's it. So I wanted to just go ahead and combine those because I thought that those were very similar topics and that we could cover them in one session. So I'll read through both of our teaching points here. The one that went along with session 3 was when reading dystopian novels, readers keep in mind that the characters are often archetypes. Knowing this leads readers to predict what will happen in a story and to understand why things happen as they do. When you see the list of archetypes, that's going to make a lot more sense because there's certain, like, archetype and stereotype are very closely related, okay? Archetypes basically like stereotypical characters, okay? So you'll see what more when you see this list of examples. You'll understand what I'm talking about a little bit more with that whole how it helps you be able to predict what's going to happen or why things are happening. The session 4 teaching point read, readers think about how characters may fit more than one archetype and how they do or do not fit the archetypes. By doing this kind of thinking, readers can come to know the characters better. So again, they're talking to you about, like I said, not a one-size-fits-all. If you are one type of an archetype, you can be others as well. You might just have certain, elements of other ones, and you may not be full out. But you're probably going to have an archetype that is probably best describes a character, but then also have some that are just related to your character that you could see possibly fitting into some of those categories. And then it's also super good to ask yourself, all right, so I know which archetype this character does fit into, but which one do they not fit into? Because I think that will end up telling you some things about the character as well. Let me show you how. All right, so if we talk about archetypes that we would normally find in school, this is what I was talking about, that you would absolutely know what I was talking about, okay? You've got the bully, the jock, the shy kid, the rule follower, and the artist. I bet you if you all stopped and thought right now, and I do not need anybody shouting anything out in the middle of class, but I bet you if you stopped and thought about it right now, you would be able to come up with somebody that you associated with each of these archetypes here at our own school. I know that I can think of people from my growing up that I would have put into these categories for sure. All right. Then we have common archetypes. So these are for dystopian fiction, though. So this is from school, so we could just kind of wrap our mind around that. We know the bully, we know the jock, we know the shy kid, okay? In a dystopian novel, though, they start to give us a few other options. We have here the hero, the sidekick, the anti-hero, the villain, the mentor, and the mother figure. Okay, so most of those are probably pretty self-explanatory, and you've probably heard about those before. But you got to think, like, the hero is going to be that brave, resourceful leader, okay? They're usually going against whatever has gone awry or whatever's gone wrong. The sidekick is usually, it's like a Ron Weasley, if you're looking at a Harry Potter reference there. You got the person who's always with them, helping them out. An anti-hero, and maybe you've heard this term before and maybe not, I'm not sure, but an anti-hero is an unlikely or unusual hero, and they usually lack qualities of the typical hero, but they end up like saving the day in the end anyway, okay? So it's not somebody you would expect to be the hero, but you're awful glad they were around near the end. We all know what a villain is. It's usually the evil one who's probably doing something to the rest of the people that moves the plot along. You've also got a mentor. A mentor is going to be an experienced and trusted advisor, okay? So you're talking about I can't think of his name right now. In Hunger Games, there's the one man who helps them out a lot, and kind of is like their go-to guy who helps out from their district or whatever. I can't remember his name right now, but he would be considered a mentor. He kind of teaches Katniss how to fight and things like that. And then you've got a mother figure is going to be the one who usually ends up taking care of everybody. Okay, so those are what we usually end up coming across in dystopian fiction. Again, after reading your books a little bit, you probably already have some characters in mind that can fit into these categories. But when we start talking about archetypes, I am going to ask you to take the time to ask yourself 3 different questions. And you have to ask them separately because they do kind of build on each other. But first, I want to know which archetype best fits each of the characters in your novel. So, like, do you know who you would consider the main hero? Do you know who you would consider the main sidekick or the main villain? Okay. The second question is, does the character fit into more than one archetype? So sometimes there's overlapping qualities, right? So sometimes you may have somebody who is a sidekick but also is a mother figure. Maybe the sidekick really takes care of the hero. And then the third question is, look at the archetypes that do not fit the character. And then I want you to ask yourself, what does that tell you? So if you look at a character in your book and you know they are not the hero, they are not brave, they are not resourceful, and they are not fighting against anything, then I want you to ask yourself, all right, if I know that they're not any of those things, what does that tell me that they are? So for instance, if you're not fighting against something that you feel is wrong, then what does that make you, right? You're submitting to power at that point in time. So there may be times where you're like, ooh, you know what? I know they're not this, but that does give me a little more insight into what I know about that character now. Couple other things, just asking yourself questions as you're reading. I want you to think about which archetypes are in your text. Maybe you don't have a mother figure in yours. That's completely possible. You also are going to use your knowledge of archetypes to predict what characters will do. So, like, for instance, if you know somebody is the villain, they're probably not going to pop up and bring somebody flowers and be like, hey, you made my day. Just wanted to make yours back. Not happening with a villain because we know how villains usually act. We can predict it. And then the last one is use your knowledge of archetypes to figure out motivations. So if you know a hero is fighting against what is wrong with the world, then you also know that that hero is probably motivated to set things right in their society or to return to old ways or fair ways or something like that. Okay? All right. So I am going to go ahead and walk us through this next part. I'm going to actually break this part up into a different video only because I have to walk in because lunch is about over and I'll do this part later. So I'm going to pause the video right here, and when we come back, we're going to talk about archetypes and how they are associated with our pony story. Okay? So start thinking about who fits where. All right? I'll be right back, guys.